Thank you so much for the round of applause, and thank you all for being here tonight. I will be moderating the talk for the next hour. So I'll introduce our speakers. First of all, let me introduce Najiba Noori, who is the director of Writing Horror. Welcome on stage, Najiba. You can sit here. I think you can tell that people really appreciated your film. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I'm also going to introduce Hamida Aman. So Hamida lives between Afghanistan and France, and she's the founder of Radio Begum and Begum Academy. So Radio Begum was broadcast in Afghanistan. It was launched 8 March 2021 to the day of the International Day of Women's Rights. And the radio unfortunately has just stopped being broadcast in Afghanistan, but she also has a satellite TV broadcast from Paris on educational programs in Afghanistan. So welcome, Hamida. And finally, I have Fereshta Abbasi. So Fereshta is a researcher at Human Rights Watch in London, and she is documenting human rights abuses in Afghanistan. So welcome, Fereshta. Okay, thank you very much. So we're going to spend the next hour together. I'll be moderating the speakers for the first 45 minutes, and then for the last 15 minutes, I'll open questions to the floor, and feel free to ask whatever questions you want. So my first question is to you, Najiba. So why did you decide to make a film on your mother, specifically at that time when you did?
Hello, good evening. Thank you very much for having me here. Thank you, FIFDH, for this opportunity to have our film Writing Hawa. It's such an honor to be in this very important film festival. Yeah, and thank you, the audience. So, yeah, I started this film in 2019, but of course it was a process for me, because I could see when I would visit Hawa at home, I could see how much she is strong, resilient, and eager to do something for herself, because I thought this is a very important story to be told, and it is deserved to be told. It's Hawa's story, but also like Hawa's story. I mean, so many Afghan women's story in the country. So the moment that I started, actually, it was Hawa herself that she decided to. I mean, it was something that she was carrying this with herself. You know, it was the dreams, like to get educated, to become an independent woman, and me, I was very impressed that even now that she's telling me that. I want to bring changes, and I wish I could be like an independent woman like you, educated, working outside, you know. So this is not late. I want to learn writing and reading. So me, for sure, first, before the director, film director, as her daughter, me and my brothers, we were very impressed, and we said, so this is our turn, right? So she did her best for us, that we get education, we become, each of us become independent. So this is our turn that we do. So yes, she started, and
So she prompted you to do the film, right?
yeah, and I started filming. Yeah.
So it's the movie. You say Hawa is my mother as well. She's my friend.
Yeah.
And you're also the film director. Was it easy to film, being the daughter, the friend, and a producer and director?
Yes, I mean, so the thing is that I had my camera all the time with me, so she was used to see me, to have my camera all the time with me. I started slowly filming her, but she was totally comfortable. Like from the moment that I took the camera.
Yeah, we can really see that.
Yes, from the beginning she was very comfortable with the camera, but for me actually this camera, it brought us very close. So we became more closer, more friends. We could talk a lot. She would tell me about her experiences more. For example, I have never heard about this, about her love, that she was in love, and it was first time to sorry to hear this. So yeah, and it was, I mean, it was very, for her it was, she was very comfortable with the camera. But for me, I think there was the moments, for sure it was not easy, for me to film it as her daughter. So for so many times I was like, I was angry that why this, why this, why it happened like this, why it should be like this. But I was very impressed, and I knew this is, we are gonna tell this story. It's such an inspiring story, and this is something that we should show to the world. But like slowly, it doesn't, what I expected to. It ended differently, unfortunately. But yeah, it was very important for me to tell this story.
Yeah, beautiful story. And as you say, you feel that it's really the story of Afghan woman that you're telling at the same time, not just your mother. This really shows in the film as well. And so when you flee to Paris, your brother continues to film. Was this easy to work this way?
No, because we didn't expect like this way. It happens. I was, I had my plans to film more. And we didn't expect the arrival of the Taliban. I mean, everybody was shocked. Just as you could see in the film, I just had a few minutes to decide whether I stay or leave the country. So, but when I left, I mean, I was not ready, for sure. But when I left, it was something I realized that this is very, very important to capture, to document this moment of the history, that how it happened, what just happened to us, and we were like more stronger to continue filming. So I could not continue, but I said to my brother that now this is, you should continue. And he did good. So he took the camera and continued filming.
Did he bring the hard drive with him when he came to meet you, or was he downloading and then using?
No, it was, so when I arrived in Paris, so later, so he kept continuing filming, but we started like slowly the editing, but he would send the footage through the friends, the journalist friends, I mean in the first few months, it was easy to go and to come, and still for the foreigners, it seems it's easy. So he would send the hard drives through these journalists to me. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
But at the same time, I was we were editing, and I was directing from far away. But of course, he was also directing, and that's why he's co-director.
Yeah. I want to move on to the main theme in this your documentary, which is education. And it's very, very touching to see how even if Hawa didn't get an education, you really understand how important it is to her. You can see it's a value she passed on to you, to her sons, and how for her she takes Zara in, but only if it is to get an education. So all of you are Afghan women who have had an education. And we also understand from the film that it's not a given. Even before the Taliban came to power, for instance, Zara didn't know how to read and write. That's my understanding. So was it easy for you to have access to an education being raised in Afghanistan? So.
Can you hear me? Okay. Sorry if I don't look this side, because the light is actually like right on our face, so it's not that easy to look there. Let me begin with this. 2 points. First of all, to all Afghans in the room, I feel and share the same feelings. I personally am quite anxious after watching the film, so I'm hoping that you can take a break after today's event and clear your mind. I know it's very difficult. It's an hour and 40 minutes film, but it shows how we lost Afghanistan. I really like the quote, Najiba, that you put there. It shows how we lost our country and our home just over a few weeks. The second thing that I wanted to mention, I wanted to praise and applaud you for being so courageous and for making this incredible film. Thank you so much. And with that, I wanted to bring it back to the first point that I mentioned earlier, that don't see Afghan women only as victims and survivors. We are change makers. We are holding the first defenders of human rights in Afghanistan. And at this point, Afghan women are not only fighting for their own rights; they are fighting for an equal future. Pre-2021, Afghanistan was listed to be one of the worst countries in the world to be a woman in. So it wasn't an ideal situation even before the Taliban takeover. It has always had its own issues. Afghanistan is an extremely conservative, patriarchal society. And it's not easy to be a woman, live there, and want equal rights. We have always had struggles. For example, the elimination of violence against women law, which was one of the biggest achievements of Afghan women in the past 20 years, was enacted by a presidential decree in 2009 and never got through the parliament, never got passed through the parliament until August 2021. That itself shows how misogynist the whole system was. Even though there were protests, women's rights defenders stood for it. We were in the streets of Kabul and advocating and calling on our parliament members to pass the law. It went to the parliament two times. It was on the table, but it never got passed. So I'm just bringing that as an example. It has never been easy to get an education. First of all, we didn't have enough schools. Secondly, there has never been quality education in Afghanistan. Budget was always an issue, and at the same time, having enough teachers was an issue. Everything began after 2001. This is the second time the Taliban are taking over. Their first takeover in the 90s also backlashed Afghanistan for a long time, right? And at the same time, as I said, Afghanistan is conservative. So if you're a girl in Afghanistan and if you want to go to school, it's not as easy as I know, as easy as you can imagine, and as easy as it sounds, and as normal as it should be. It just isn't like that. as an woman, as an Afghan woman, you begin the fight within your family. You need to prove yourself to the family that you're worth getting an education. And then once you have access to education, then you need to prove that you're worth getting the job. And you need to constantly, I mean, and probably that's because it's part of our character now. We're constantly in a process of proving ourselves that we are worth having access to our fundamental rights. And I mean, for me personally, my parents decided to leave Afghanistan during the 90s, the civil war. I was born as a refugee in Iran. In Iran, Afghan refugees, even today, as I'm speaking right now, do not have the right to education. So similarly, I didn't have the right to education in Afghanistan, in Iran. I used to be kicked out of school. After 9/11, my parents decided to come back to Afghanistan because of our education, for me and my sister. And then we came to Afghanistan. It was the first time, actually, for me coming back to Afghanistan. It took me some time to know my cousins. I had never met any of my aunts. It took me a while to learn the Kabuli accent of Farsi, because I was the first Farsi accent that I was exposed to was Iranian Farsi, and then later Hazaragi, which is part of my identity, right? So the past 20 years provided a window and an opportunity for women to be able to get an education, but it was never easy. And there is one part in the film that there was an attack on a girls' school in Afghanistan in September 2023. So there was also these schools and institutes were also attacked by the ISKP, which is the Islamic State of Islamic States affiliates of Khorasan in Afghanistan. So there are different factors contributed to that, and I mean, definitely not. We as Afghan women do not have anything for granted. We fight literally for everything that we have.
Thank you very much. And thanks for sharing so much of your story with us. Hamida, so I know you're very involved in bringing education to girls despite the Taliban being in power. So, you know, I heard that your radio was broadcasting just until recently. I'm really surprised it was able to broadcast actually for so long. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do, and how do you work with the girls? How do you make sure that they have this access to knowledge, to education?
Je vais parler en français.
Oui, c'est parfait.
I'm going to speak in French, if you don't mind.
Allô? Oui, ça va. Tout d'abord, j'aimerais
First of all, I would like to congratulate Najiba for this wonderful film. It's really unique because you enter into a woman's intimacy. It's the history of all Afghan women that is told. It shows the courage, their lives, and the lives of an entire people of 40 million people that changed overnight, practically. And for the umpteenth time, we lost our country, we lost our hope. And this film is truly, I think it's a historic film and document of these events, and generations in the future will be able to watch it and understand everything it symbolizes. It shows Afghanistan of the last 20 years, the way women such as you seated at my side grew up. It's never been easy, but there were opportunities over the last 20 years, and the women from Afghanistan were able to seize it. I've been working on Afghanistan for 20-odd years. I've seen how it's developed, how society has evolved, how women have embraced life and opportunities and education, and little by little took their place in society. And I was absolutely torn and so saddened to see all these changes that took place overnight. And yes, it was difficult. I set up Radio Begum just a few months before the Taliban arrived. It was a kind of response to their arrival, in fact, as our and all people in Afghanistan saw there was this massive change. And in fact, what made me realize that things were not going to go well was those Doha agreements in 2020 between the Trump government and the Taliban. And we all watched it, and we women were the first to be extremely concerned about what was going to happen, what would happen to what we'd gained. And that's why I set up the radio. In March 21, there were many media dedicated to women, set up by women, for women. There were TV channels, radio stations, and so on. But after the 15th of August 2021, there were none left, with the only ones. And I wondered, what should I do? The others have closed down. They're avoiding danger. They're trying to protect themselves to see what would happen, because we had no idea what would happen. I wasn't in Afghanistan at the time. I was in France. I had to go there 2 days later. Obviously, my trip was cancelled. But the question was, what do we do? I'd put all the employees, all the staff on the evacuation lists, but then we weren't evacuated, and so we decided to keep going, and we kept going, and we kept the radio going. And we'd already started talking about using the station as a tool to teach, to take schools to homes. Now, for the last 3.5 years, our children have not been going to school anymore. That's what people say. But actually, it's more than that. It's been about 5 years, because before the arrival of the Taliban, there was so much insecurity. And on top of that, there was COVID. So COVID, insecurity, explosions every day. And I recall a terrible explosion in June 2021 committed by Daesh in the west of Kabul. And 110 school children, little girls and boys, died. I was at the other end of Kabul, and I heard it, and I froze. And that's when we decided that we had to do something, and we organized these classes on the radio station. So we brought young children to the studio, and we recorded the school program. We broke it down in chapters. We had and maths and everything we could teach, not maths, I apologize, says the speaker. So all that was launched before the Taliban arrived. And then after, well, we just kept going. And we knew that many things were going to change, that we wouldn't be able to broadcast music anymore, that we wouldn't be able to speak freely, that there would be no more entertainment.
Plus de divertissement. Donc,
and
il faut savoir que
we kept going nevertheless.
Les femmes n'ont pas été encore interdites de travailler dans les médias.
Now, women weren't banned from working in the media yet. We were controlled. There was a lot of censorship, and we were restricted in the programs that we broadcast on TV or on the radio. So we were limited. But from the very beginning, we provided these educational programs, and we have other programs, programs with advice, spiritual programs, programs for women with tips on how to set up their business, how to run their business, and how to start out with a very small amount of money and invest it and make it blossom. So those are the kinds of things we've been providing over the last 3.5 years. And, well, just a little anecdote, but I was sent a link for me to watch the documentary, and I decided not to watch it because I've seen my country collapse over the years. I go back every couple of months, and every time I go back, I see the increased poverty, the lack of hope, and the depression that's hitting everyone. Women, girls, children, men, the elderly. Nobody escapes this depression, and there's a complete social collapse. There are members of my family who are part of the middle class, and over the months, their living standards have dropped until they reached poverty. So people who were middle-class people before are now people in need, and it's urgent need often for food. So I really didn't want to watch the film. Then, on a trip in the train, I did decide to watch it, and I have to say thank you, because I was so happy to see a courageous woman, a really brave woman who was not begging and living in dire poverty. But there are other Hawas. I spoke about my educational program on the radio. We use the media a lot. Alongside the radio, we launched Begum Academy, which is a digital platform. We've worked on the entire school program, and we've filmed it. So we have over 1,800 chapters from sixth year right the way through to the end of secondary school. The entire program that's not available to girls is available now on the platform. And then we have Begum TV. It's broadcast from Paris to Afghanistan with its content in video. It's 24/7 with entertainment, music, TV series. We even have C'est pas sorcier in Dari and Pashto. So everything that's banned in Afghanistan is available on Begum TV. And that's the advantage of satellite TV, is that we're no longer in Afghanistan. There is no censoring, and we have a freedom that we don't have or couldn't have in Afghanistan. Well, that's wonderful. There's another topic. I'll keep speaking in French if you don't mind. So you're broadcasting these programs that are broadcast freely, but is it easy for women and girls to access those programs if they live in Afghanistan? For the radio, we have 18 antennas that cover some 20 provinces out of 34, so a large part of Afghanistan. It's a very mountainous country, as you know. Sometimes it's difficult to reach the most remote villages, but
on estime on pourrait toucher environ 5 millions de personnes.
according to our estimates, we could probably reach 5 million people on the basis of where our antenna are located. Now, I don't know how many people listen to us, but we do have a lot of listeners. All of our programs are call-in programs. They're interactive programs that people can dial into. So for the last 3.5 years, we have been providing this space for women to express themselves. They can call in anonymously. They can speak about their problems. They can get advice from the psychologist, from the doctors, from the nutritionists, or even theologians. They are able to speak because the Taliban uses Islam to say that women can not do anything anymore. They should just stay at home. That's their place. And so thanks to these programs, we speak about the rights of women. And so these women have this space, and with TV, we reach a large number of spectators. 50% of people have access to TV, and an increasing number of people are getting satellite access because it's their only opening to the rest of the world. It's the only way they can be informed because they're not able to be informed through the media in Afghanistan. And so you can broadcast your programs in Afghanistan with no issues, with no interference from the Taliban? Well, yes, no, we do have problems. For a while we didn't, but the fact that we have a channel that broadcasts freely, we run counter to what is said by the Taliban. They've basically removed any self-esteem the women had. They get the impression that they're lives are worthless. And through our programs, we try to make them understand that that is wrong, that women have the right to work, they have the right to live, they have the right to study. And we show them programs where we get women to speak about what they've done in their lives and to give hope to those who are in Afghanistan.
De cette manière, nous essayons, et via la radio, le digital et la télévision,
Through the radio and digital programs and TV, we try to reach the greatest number of women. Also, for the last month or so, we have started broadcasting a program of psychological support. It's broadcast directly from Paris to Afghanistan, and we get calls. We provide them with a WhatsApp number, and for a one-hour program, we get calls from women from all over the country. We expected it to be mainly from Kabul and the large cities, because they are the ones who have more education and have smartphones. But we were absolutely surprised to realize that women were calling in from all provinces.
Fereshta, I really wanted to hear how you were working to collect human rights abuses whilst you're not on the ground, and what challenges you're facing, and how you're how you can keep a record of those human rights abuses.
So it's not an easy thing to do, because, as you mentioned, we don't have access to the ground for the safety of, the staff, of course, but also for the safety of the people that we speak to. Because if we speak to people in the country, and if they're exposed to have spoken to human rights organization, they could be arrested, they could be detained, they could be tortured, and they could be forcibly disappeared. So we have, Human Rights Watch has been one of the organizations who have reported in Afghanistan for a long time, since the 90s. And I used to be based in Kabul. I used to report from the ground. It's sort of it's a learning process for me itself as well. I'm not used to this sort of work that you do all the research remotely, especially when it comes to human rights abuses, where you need to document the cases on the ground, where you need to have some sort of connection with the person that you're speaking. You need to gain their trust. So there is a whole process that you need to follow to be able to document. So it's kind of, I'm new to this sort of work. As Najiba said, we didn't expect everything to shift overnight. One of the things that we have done at Human Rights Watch is that we had established a network of friends and partners before the takeover, and we have really expanded this network. So we work with local partners on the ground. We work with some of the friends of Human Rights Watch who are all over the country. And I can easily say that Human Rights Watch is one of the very few organizations in Afghanistan who is able to report on the 34 provinces. So the first report that we did right after the takeover about the restrictions on media actually covered 27 provinces out of 34. So we were able to speak to journalists and media workers in 24 provinces of Afghanistan, which is huge, because most of the reports that you see usually focuses on the bigger cities like Mazar, Kabul, Kandahar, and it's not easy to get information from the rural areas. At the same time, as a person who's worked in this sphere since the takeover, I can easily say that the access to information in Afghanistan is becoming very limited. Every day there is a new restriction coming. Every day the Taliban, especially the General Directorate of Intelligence, or GDI, usually goes to the media outlets and tells them that they're not allowed to report on these issues. In the report that we published right after 2021, journalists had told us that they need to get an approval from the Taliban, the directorates, provincial directorates, before working on a report. And there are certain topics that journalists are not allowed to report on. For example, in the south of Afghanistan, no one is allowed to report about the girls' education. or about the poppy cultivation. So there are certain topics that everyone is staying out of that. And I remember one case that in Helmand, a province in the south of Afghanistan, a young man who posted something on Facebook, a critical post about the increase of food prices since the Taliban takeover, was arrested by the Taliban, tortured to death. And his body was brought back to his house. And I remember at the time, I spoke to 3 different journalists who confirmed to me that this has happened, but none of them dared to report about it. So if the local media cannot report on what is happening in Afghanistan, of course, it's more difficult for us to do so. But I mean, at the same time, we have developed our research methods. We work very closely with our security team, who helps us to find secure communication ways with people on the ground. And I speak with people every day. And when I say people, it's not only, I'm not reporting on people of Afghanistan. I have friends on the ground. I still have relative and family members who's living in Afghanistan. So I also report on people that I know. I speak to my friends to get information about what is happening on the ground. And with that, actually, I would like to give a shout out to some of Human Rights Watch colleagues in the room who have been incredible, a big support. It's not a job that one single country researcher can actually do. It's a team. It's an effort of a team who is making this work. And I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's the resistance of women of Afghanistan. So we do have people from the ground who reach us to us, and they want these sort of abuses to be documented. One of the things that
I'm really sorry. I have the clock, which I think is ticking, and I have to ask the producer to come and talk about impact. So can she come up on stage? It'll be a 2-minute intermission, and then I think we'll just maybe have, I had so many questions for all of you, I'm so sorry. And then I'll just take 1 or 2 questions from the floor. Please come up.
Thank you so much. Yes, just to quickly say something about the impact campaign around this film, because we felt that this film is so important for everyone to see, but especially for a number of people in this world to see it maybe a little bit better, because we feel that I think this is a very important story, and not only for the women and girls in Afghanistan, but the women and girls in the world. So we're setting up political screenings around the film to bring back Afghanistan also a little bit better at the geopolitical agenda, or all the agendas, political agendas, because there's so much going on in the world right now that everything is competing. And except for that, we have one main goal, and that is that the women and girls in Afghanistan can still obtain education. And there's so much that we can do about that. Hamida clearly told us all about it. And from all other places in the world, we still need teachers for the girls to teach them. So we're gathering teachers from the diaspora in so many different countries around the world, the Afghan diaspora. And for that, we're setting up diaspora screenings to gather them, and also to let them talk together about what it is to live in 2 different worlds and what it is to feel powerless. And I must admit, I've never met so many powerhouses in my life until the last couple of months, but because I think Fereshta is really right here. They're not only survivors or victims, but they're really powerhouses. So I think we still can do a lot. So if you want to join us, then please go to writinghawa.com or with the QR code. And if you're Afghan, then please become a teacher as well for these girls.
I'd like to take at least 1 or 2 questions from the audience. Please raise your hand. Yes, I see a lady over there. Maybe I think we're meant to be bringing a mic round. Otherwise, just... C'est parfait, c'est parfait.
Tu gères là? Je fais tout seul là. Tu gères. Je passe les micros.
Ah oui, tu veux que j'aille?
Tu essaies de joindre Louise. T'as besoin de quelque chose?
Plutôt à gauche ou à droite?
Oui, c'est bon. J'aime bien quand ça marche comme ça.
C'est tout bon, faut juste donner.
Oui, c'est bien sûr qu'il peut y avoir une répression pour l'instant.
Yes, of course, there can be repression, but the thing is now, satellite dishes are smaller and smaller, so we don't have very large satellite dishes on top of our roofs like it used to be the case before. And until now, the Taliban have not talked about cracking down on satellites because they don't have the means to it. In Iran, they've been trying to do it for 40 years and they haven't managed. So I don't think in Afghanistan we're not any smarter than our neighbors, so we won't be able to do it. However, they do control the internet, so they could reduce the flow of information, but for the moment it hasn't been done. There's one thing you need to keep in mind, is that the regime refuses to reopen the schools, so the de facto authorities do not provide education to girls. However, there are many underground initiatives whereby people get organized, civil society gets organized to set up underground schools, alternative schools, where young women gather around young kids, or even young women, young kids, or even mothers like Hawa, that accompany their children to learn to read and write, they learn a trade, follow classes. So it's all very hypocritical. Schools are not allowed, but we can learn a lot online. There are many different resources, and these secret schools, they're not secret because everybody knows what is going on over there. They're an open secret, and of course the situation is different from one region to another. We all have different relationship to education, but they are some solutions, but people do take risks, can be dangerous, and it's very stop and go, and it will not replace schools. We can produce all the programs that we want, invest as much as we want, even broadcast everywhere over the country, will not replace a classroom. These young girls, they are dying out. They're staying at home, they're studying, but they have no hope when all schools, universities are closed to them and the world of work is closed to them. It's very difficult to keep them motivated. The only solution that we've found, and that's the message I want to convey, universities of the world need to grant them scholarships. Online scholarship, maybe not physical scholarship for physicals be there physically, but we need to give them hope. That's the only way to make sure that we keep them in school. And I really hope that this regime will not last. It looks like they're here to stay. Maybe they will stay for 4 or 5 more years, but unfortunately, our youth cannot afford to wait that long. And as Fereshta said, as journalists, we won't even have the right to ask questions about education, about going to school. It will become illegal to ask questions about reopening the schools. And in March, 21st of March, that's back to school for kids traditionally. And for the 3rd year in a row, schools will remain closed to girls above 12 years of age. There's a question at the front.
Thank you so much for coming to Geneva. I was wondering, how was the process to bring your family to France? Was that hard?
Very tough. Yes, it took 3 years that the family could arrive in France, and as you could see in the film, so they left Kabul to Iran, and then they waited there like 1.5 years there. So yeah, but it was a long process, very hard. I had to like just keep pushing, but we had such good people that they helped us, that we bring them out. Yeah, but it was not easy.
I say I got an extra 15 minutes, so I can take another question if there's. Yes, over there.
Rien, tiens.
Ouais, en fait, maintenant j'ai un peu. Ouais. Ok. Je voulais savoir, en tant
I was wondering,
que fille, en tant que femme,
as
quel est le meilleur conseil que vous pouvez
I was wondering, as a woman, as a girl, what would be the best piece of advice you could give to me? Because you're very inspiring, I think.
D'abord, étudier.
Well, the first thing is to study. You need to study and be aware of how fortunate you are to have the possibility to choose your own life and to have the same opportunities in life as your brother, as your fellow men in your life. And as women, you also need to fight for other women. You're the next generation. You know, in Afghanistan, we also thought that we used to take it for granted. We encouraged young Afghan women to seize all these opportunities, and we told them, study hard, work hard, and you will become independent. You will be in charge of your own destiny, of your own life, and you will be able to take part in the reconstruction of our country. That was the message for 20 years. We used to take it for granted. Of course, it's still Afghanistan, so the situation is always very, very fragile. But being abandoned so suddenly and going through such a radical change is always a shock. So the message to the rest of the world is also that you should not take anything for granted. You need to beware. I do hope that no other country becomes radicalized as much as Afghanistan has been, but you need to be very vigilant, and sorority is also very important.
So I have something else that I really wanted to ask is, we can see in the film your family obviously is not happy the Taliban are there. We feel that many families have felt the same. So you're all three of you in contact with people on the ground. Do you feel a sense of resistance, of people gathering, or or does Taliban not allow for any form of resistance to express? I mean, what's your sentiment on forms of resistance or rebellion that could maybe emerge in the future?
Sure. I mean, right after the takeover, you probably saw in the media that Afghan women started protesting on the streets, and there were footage of that in the film as well. But very quickly, Taliban responded to that with violence, and some of these women, the female protesters, had been arbitrarily detained, tortured. I mean, there's a report that Human Rights Watch has published in September 2023. We managed to speak to some of these female protesters who were detained and tortured alongside with their family members, with their children. Their conditions of release were very abusive. So, and we also have reports of some of these female protesters who have been forcibly disappeared. So it's not easy to resist in Afghanistan anymore because the Taliban are really cracking down on this. And women in Afghanistan do not have the right to freedom of assembly. At some point, the Taliban spokesperson announced that it's not legal anymore to assemble, but that doesn't mean mean that Afghan women are not finding other ways to resist. Yesterday was International Women's Day. You could see videos of women. Actually, there was a woman in a rooftop in Kabul who was dancing, and she covered her face, but she was dancing and resistant, and sent it to one of the international outlets who had published that. We still see Twitter Spaces, for example. Twitter. I still refuse to call it X. Twitter is is one of the applications that is being used quite, in Afghanistan, and you still see that women are arranging Twitter spaces. They speak about what is happening in the country. You still receive videos of women covering their faces, protesting against the regulations that is happening, and also in the diaspora. I mean, women are literally taking speaking in every conference, taking space to speak about what is happening in the country. And I believe that's a form of resistance. The underground schools, as you said, that's resistance. I mean, I have said this many times, and I'm going to say it again, that for me, that 13 years old, 14 years old girl in Afghanistan who is attending an underground school in a rural village in Helmand, in a province in south of Afghanistan, is the resistance of Afghanistan. She will build the Afghanistan that she deserves to live in. So, and that's what drives me to do the work that I'm doing, because those women in the country, they are inspiration, and they haven't given up. And if they still find the hope to fight, who we are to give up.
Yeah, thank you so much. So my last question was, do you see any cause for optimism? And it's true that when you see the news, when you see that women are more and more constricted, that have less and less rights, my question would be no. But from hearing we do feel that not something's changing, but there is still life and hope. So I'll ask the question. So do you see any cause for optimism? Do you, for the women of Afghanistan, for the people of Afghanistan at the moment? Each of you.
Yeah, I would say, like, if there is a hope, it's the women of Afghanistan, really. So, as Fereshta said, we are resisting those women inside Afghanistan, those women outside. Of course, the women inside Afghanistan, the way that they resist, it's not comparing with us that outside, but I don't know how to answer about the optimism. Really, I'm not sure, because I don't know. I don't know. But this was also something that with my film it happened. So at the end of the film, so you can see, like, my family arrives in France. We could finish it like very happy ending. But it is not happy ending, really. And we preferred to there is no hope, I mean, honestly, and we prefer to end it like this. So this is today. Of course there is a resisting, and but in the film, I prefer to just to have these sentences, really, that you as audience, that you read, and to remind you, it's been like almost 3-4 years in August, that is still the doors of schools are closed to the girls of Afghanistan, and it's the only country in this planet that the girls are not allowed to go to the school, which I think it becomes kind of normal. And so.
C'est vrai que vu la situation ne s'améliore pas.
The situation is not improving in Afghanistan, and what's concerning
L'Afghanistan, ça fait 40 ans que
is that, well, for the last 40 years, we've been receiving humanitarian aid on the drip, and now we need it more than ever. For the last 4 years, the country has experienced an unprecedented economic crisis. So there's not only the political crisis, there's also this economic crisis that's getting worse and worse. And then there are the budgetary cuts on assistance every year since 2021, 50% drop in humanitarian aid. And on top of that, we've just experienced the complete freezing of US aid. So that's the Americans. And so even less support and assistance will reach the country. This is not only humanitarian, but also support to women in their projects, to keep our schools going, to keep our media going. All of these provide a whole host of people with jobs, women teachers, doctors, and so on. All of that's disappearing. There's aid that's being cut, all the aid for hospitals, because of the fear that the money will end up in the hands of the Taliban. But unfortunately, it was women and children who were the main people to go to these hospitals. So they're the primary victims. And so contrary to my colleagues, I'm not very optimistic, not very positive about the future for women and for the country on the whole. And the people are still held hostage by the regime, and that's what's really tragic.
Add something before I wrap up?
Okay, so very quickly, I actually wanted to mention this because as hopeless the situation looks like, there were some steps that have been taken in 2024 and 2025. So, for example, the ICC recently announced application of arrest warrants for 2 of the Taliban leaders for the crimes against humanity of gender persecution. There are 4 states right now: Australia, Canada, Germany, and the Netherlands, who have announced an initiative to hold the Taliban accountable for their violations of CEDAW. This could be a potential case at the International Court of Justice. And at the same time, some of us at in Geneva are calling for on the Human Rights Council to establish a dedicated accountability mechanism for Afghanistan who can document the extent of repression for women and girls. So, I mean, as hopeless as it is, there are steps that have been taken, and we believe that there are still tools and mechanisms that could be used to make a change.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Could we give a huge round of applause? Thank you so much for your movie. Even thank you to your mom for willing to be a witness to her life and her struggle. And thank you to our guests for coming. And thank you all for coming here tonight and listening to our talk. Thank you.